Alrighty, so I'm live on both platforms now. Good morning, everyone. This is a very early one. I am on my shit early in the morning, excuse my language. This may be one that your children don't watch with you. I am talking directly to parents. First of all, my name is Kenesha Tillman. I am the owner of Tutus and Tennis Shoes, which is a hair care education company. I specialize in teaching white adoptive parents how to take care of their Black kids' hair. And so, with teaching Black hair care, especially to white parents, I run into a lot of cultural differences, and sometimes I run into low key racism, and then sometimes I run into flat out racism. I am also an admin of a group on Facebook called Interracial Hair and Skincare. And I recently made a post basically putting my foot down on people being disrespectful to the Black women who are in there who are helping educate. I also acknowledge that you do not need to give your child's diagnosis in a public forum to learn hair care. And if you are a foster parent and or you have adopted and you didn't adopt at birth, or even if you did, you don't have to disclose your child's biological family story either to learn hair care. And these things are actually very common in a variety of groups. So it is not just that particular Facebook group that I work in that this comes up. It is rampant in mostly the adoption groups, most of the foster care groups that I'm in, any of the groups that are for mixed babies, any of the groups that are for Black hair care, but it is mostly white people who are inside of the groups. These same issues come up and a lot of the same questions come up, which the way they are worded are rooted in racism. So one of the first things I want to talk about this morning, and let me go ahead and give you the warning that this will not be a long broadcast because I'm actually supposed to be on my way somewhere. So I really only have like maybe 15, 20 minutes max to get through this, okay? So, and I'm not really trying to keep it 15 minutes even, but let's start with the first one, good hair versus bad hair. Those terminologies are rooted in racism. Good hair is supposed to be anything closer to white. So if you are a mono-raced Black person whose both parents are Black or both parents are African and you have tightly coiled, kinky hair, somehow that is akin to being bad hair, difficult hair, challenging hair, resistant hair. I'm trying to think of some of the other terms, but basically any term that is used to describe it is always used with a negative connotation, and that is inaccurate. Then if you have white in your family or you have Indian in your family and your hair is a looser curl, a shinier curl, a wave, a complete spiral and not mixed with zigzags, then somehow you have good hair. So the term good hair, bad hair comes from white society, and especially it's directly from slavery. So white society comparing your features to Eurocentric features, and the closer you got to having Eurocentric features, the better you were. So the better your hair was, the better your skin was. In slavery, it came about when the slave master raped a slave and their offspring was light skinned, maybe a looser curl, and they were given a slightly better position than the rest of the other slaves. So maybe that slave was able to work in the house versus working in the field all day. Maybe that slave, if they were working in the field, they were working as an overseer, basically just creating any slight difference between the family of people to make one feel just a little bit better than the other and make the others feel, what all feelings do you come up with when you're put in that situation? I'm sure there was some resentment. I'm sure there was some envy. There's all these emotions that go into, they go into the good hair, bad hair. So how it plays out in modern day society is if you look at most media, especially older media that's outside of the last, let's say 5-10 years, majority of the time, if it was a Black person in the ad or in the magazine article, they were of lighter skin with a looser curl pattern. or they were styled in a way to look more Eurocentric versus looking more ethnic, more Afrocentric. Even now, in most ads, although we are starting to see darker skinned Black people, we are not necessarily seeing things that are the norm in our culture. For instance, majority of the time, if you see a Black kid, you're going to see them with, free hair. So although our hair is beautiful when it's free and it has a lot of curls and textures and all these great things, Black girl childhood usually includes braids and beads. Until some celebrity that is white, like Kim K, makes it popular, it's still a no-no for Black kids to be seen that way in most ads. We'll move past that one for now. Using the term Black in a negative connotation. We are Black. There's nothing wrong with being Black. I run into a lot of white parents in the adoptive and transracial community that will avoid, like all hell, will avoid calling their child Black because somewhere deep inside they have a negative connotation attached to that. Somewhere deep inside they have a bias towards Black, or they have an aversion towards being Black. They have some kind of preference to being white, as if being Black inherently means something's wrong. So if they call their own child Black, now they're attaching all these negative beliefs and connotations to their Black child, when really the issue is not your child being Black. The issue is what you think and feel inside of your heart about Black people. And whether you actually call your child Black or not, those things will read in everyday life and your child will pick up on it. And because you've never actually said it, they won't be able to, because you've never actually said, in most cases anyway, what your negative beliefs, what your deep understandings of negative understandings of Blackness is, your child won't be able to verbalize why they always feel like something is wrong. And what it sometimes comes out looking like is your Black child asking to be white or asking for things that will help them look more white. Because to a young child, they may not be able to make the connection from good, the idea of what's good and what white is, but they may ask you for things like straighter hair, longer hair, hair like Rebecca's in class, hair like Julie's in class, versus finding pride in the hair that they have. When we start getting into adding in extensions, this is one of those ways that it comes up, and it's important not to reinforce. A lot of times, Black children that have been adopted by white families are living in mostly white spaces. Oh, I'm just realizing my title on Instagram has a typo. It's not supposed to be White Supremacy Ave. It's supposed to be and. But anyway, a lot of times the Black kids are living in all white households. And therefore, that's all they're seeing. And so their idea of beauty is formed around Eurocentric features. So they don't see their self being reflected as something beautiful, as something good, as something right. And so then they start asking for things that they perceive to be good. So then they want extensions. So if you have a 3-year-old and you're already putting extensions in her hair to give her hair down past her shoulders where her hair is not naturally grown, when will she have the opportunity to love her hair and how it naturally grows? When will she have the opportunity to build a strong idea of herself, to get used to seeing herself as she naturally is in the mirror? Whether or not it's actually healthy for the hair or not, it is not healthy for the child's self-esteem and self-image to start putting extensions in their hair as young as 2 and 3 and 4, especially when your Black child is growing up in an all-white household. It just reinforces that something is inherently wrong with them. Somehow, how God made them is not enough. Somehow, how they came to this planet is not enough. You're reinforcing white Eurocentric beauty standards. You're reinforcing white supremacy, whether you think you're racist or not. For extensions, we're not even going to talk about relaxers or texturizers. It's not happening. Okay? Don't even go there. Black boys and hair care. So I get a lot of questions and I get a lot of requests to make a boy hair care class, and I'm reluctant to. Part of the reason I'm reluctant to is because a lot of the white women that I run across in the Facebook groups and social media groups for adoption and or transracial families, white people are fetishizing black boys, and they're doing their damnedest to remove any traces of masculinity. I'm not talking about an adult or even a teenager or even a preteen choosing how they want to present to the world. I'm not talking about sexuality. I'm simply talking about a baby being born as male and the parent deciding any of our gender norms are incorrect. And because they are fetishizing this little boy, instead of treating him like a human, they're treating him more like a hobby or a pet. They are choosing for him how he presents to the world and removing any masculinity, and not because they are really acknowledging or respecting the LGBT community, but because they are afraid of black men. They are afraid of strong black men, whether you admit it or not. A lot of the times, especially the white women who refuse to cut their black sons' hair, who say, they say comments like, I'm trying to think of one. It's more of an undertone. They very rarely vocalize this this that I'm saying to you. But a lot of times it is rooted in the sheer fear of this black child that you already have set up to be an exception to your perception of blackness. Um, a lot of times you are figuring out ways subconsciously to make him less of a threat to you because you haven't dealt with your fear of black people. You haven't dealt with all those misconceptions in your mind of what blackness is, of what black men are, of what you basically are still believing a lot of what media has fed you to believe about black people. And then you go into raising black children out of this mindset. And some of that comes out as not wanting to take your black son to black men to get a haircut, not wanting to ask black men, i.e., barbers, how to take care of your son's hair. I am a single parent, and I know that it is very important that my son has strong black male figures around him. Whether or not it's his biological father is neither here nor there. He still needs to have males around him. So I am not in a rush to create a class to help white women further avoid strong male black role models in their black sons' lives. You're already doing enough to kind of tear down his strength and his self-confidence in being a black male. I'm not in a rush to add to that. Black male hair care can be extremely easy. Whether our gender norms are correct or not, we still live in a society that adheres to them. And in that society, you have the leeway to cut his hair short into a fade if you don't know how to care for it. It is in no way better for him to have long hair and it not be cared for. If you don't know how to comb, moisturize, detangle, appreciate, love, build up his black hair in whatever texture it comes in, whether it's kinky, tightly coiled, zigzag, loosely curled, wavy, if you are describing his hair as challenging or as if it's a chore or as if something is wrong with him, you need to take him to a barber and let him get a fade because you are doing him a disservice. Okay? Biracial children are black. I said this in the interracial group last night. White culture demands purity. Black culture does not. So when I say black hair care, I am including biracial children. Once you learn proper hair care, you adjust those techniques to meet your child's needs, whether that is their hair texture because it's a looser curl because one parent is white and one parent is black, whether your child physical or behavior needs dictate that you adjust the skills. I am not, when I say black hair, I'm not disregarding any part of the Black community. White culture and white perception of the world makes that separation. When I say Black hair, I'm not actually separating it by genders. If you take my course or you learn from me the hair care techniques that I teach, you can translate to girl hair, boy hair, and everything in between. You can translate to for your biracial child or your monoracial, completely Black child. You can even translate it for white hair. Honestly, I've had white parents say, I learned to take better care of my own hair while taking your course that I thought was solely for my child. When I say Black hair care, there is no limits on the Black hair care. White supremacy and a white perception puts these limits on what I teach. I don't teach those limits. Okay? So when I'm talking to you about your child's hair, it's not that I'm ignoring their diagnosis or I'm ignoring one of their parents is white, Indian, Irish, Asian, whatever it may be. If one of the parents is Black, I'm talking to you about a Black child. If the child came out light skinned, I'm still talking to you about a Black child. The child came out darker than dark, close to the black, to the brown of this jar. I'm still talking about Black hair care. Your perception of what Black is not my problem. I know what I'm talking about and I know how to teach too, okay? Teach to it. The last thing is diagnosis. For whatever reason, white culture likes to use diagnosis as a reason not to do. Black culture does not, Black people do not have that grace in life. When we have a child or when we grow up, we still have to perform the duties in life. There is no grace given to us because we have a different way of learning. There's no grace given to us because, I don't know, there's really no grace given. That's a part of the Black experience, unfortunately, because of racism. So when you coddle your child because of XYZ diagnosis and you take away any expectations because somebody has told you that they have this going on or that going on with their brain, you're setting them up for failure. While they're in your household and you can constantly defend and coddle and do for them, when they get out of your household, let's say just kindergarten, and they don't have the skills to cope with some of what is going to be thrown upon them, when they don't have the skills to deal with just regular expectations, when they don't have when they don't have the idea that they themselves have to work on themselves, that mommy can't always save them, that mommy can't always do the battle for them, they will not be able to succeed. How does that play into hair care? When I say to you, for instance, I'm using 9-year-old because in one of the groups, the lady said that her 9-year-old couldn't sit for more than 5 minutes. That's entirely wrong. Your 9-year-old can't sit for 5 minutes. You don't have the expectation of your 9-year-old to sit for more than 5 minutes because somebody has told you about his diagnosis and his trauma. None of that negates that hair care still has to happen. And only sitting for 5 minutes at a time is unrealistic. You're already in this group asking 50 billion questions and overwhelmed and complaining about his hair care. And you're making it that much harder by teaching this child that he is not expected to and incapable of doing something like sitting for at least 30 minutes at a time. But at 9, sitting for 2 hours is expected. And I think maybe in white culture, y'all think that somehow these children are sitting like statues for Black parents. They're not sitting like statues. They're doing what children do. They're moving, they're twitching, they're itching. I haven't sat still through this whole entire life. I'm 37. So no, it's not that they're sitting like statues or somehow perfectly being good little robots. It's that we adjust with them. And we're able to adjust with them because we have the skill set. So we know how to take care of hair. Okay. And that hair could be growing out of a 2-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, or a 12, 13, 25, 36-year-old. So when I come to you and give you directions, it's not out of lack of experience or me not knowing that child has shit to do with anything. It's because I know how to do hair. And so I adjust my skill set to fit that child. So that still boils down to it not being a problem with the child and hair care not being dependent on their diagnosis. It boils down to whether or not you have the skill set and you can adjust to what they need. If you can't adjust to what they need, yeah, it's challenging, but it's not their hair that's challenging. It's your lack of skills that's challenging. But you don't want to believe that, or that's not your first thought, because white is right. White is not right. That is a lie. That's a myth. Okay? It's not right. It's not any more superior than any other race. It is not somehow your care is easier than the care of a Black child, the care of a biracial child, the care of a Mexican child, the care of an Indian child. Your care is not easier or better than theirs or more important than theirs. Your care is just what you're accustomed to. You're white, you grew up white, you grew up in a white household, you learned how to take care of that white body. And so it became easy, it became everyday, just came to you by nature. Black hair care for Black people, not all, there's plenty of Black people who don't know how to do hair, but the issue is not the hair, the issue is the lack of skills. But Black hair care to you as a white parent feels excessively challenging because you've never had to do it. You didn't grow up in it. It doesn't come to you inherently or innately. There is no baseline understanding. It is not because the hair itself is the problem. It is you, your lack of skills, and your perception, which on the upside is all changeable. It is not permanent. So when you decide to open yourself up to learning, when you decide that listening to Black people, especially Black women who are willing to teach you, is something that you can do, even through the discomfort, you are also making a decision to change your perception of your child's hair and skin, of their care, and of what it takes to do that. You are not using their diagnosis as an excuse. You are no longer limiting them to what a textbook says they can and cannot do with this diagnosis. You are giving them the freedom to be magical and defy odds, and you're giving them the support to do so. So it's not just hair care. And there's plenty of life lessons that you as a parent can learn through learning hair care. Okay? I am now late. This was not supposed to run for 22 minutes. I appreciate y'all listening. If you listen later because it's extra early in the morning, leave comments and I will check back with you either this evening or tomorrow morning. I will talk to y'all later.